Seal it up.
When Galadriel gains consciousness, she's surrounded by smoke and fire. Initially, all she sees are dead bodies and burned down houses, but then she hears Theo. While the two accompany each other, Isildur struggles to have Valandil freed from the roof that's pinning him down. With the help of Miriel, they manage to get him out. It's then that they discover that Antamo is dead, but they have no time to mourn as their queen is urging them to help the others. They rescue a woman and her kids from a burning house, but Isildur ends up getting buried under the collapsing hut. In Rovanian, the Harfoots reach the grove only to find the lands burning and destroyed by the explosive eruption of Aradruin. 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐸 tells his people about mountains that spit fire when a new evil arises. Later, he approaches Nori and asks if the stranger can fix the grove, and when she and Nori refuse to do it, 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐸 takes it upon himself to talk to the stranger. The whole village then watches as the stranger does his chanting, but when a branch breaks from a tree, it hits the two Brandyfoot kids, much to everyone's horror. The Harfoots become wary again of the stranger, while the man feels regretful about what happened. In Khazad-dûm, Elrond proposes to King Durin that in exchange for access to the Mithril mines, the elves are prepared to provide grain, game, and timber from the elder forests of Eriador for the next 5 centuries. The king's advisors are doubtful that the elves can keep their promise, but Elrond assures them he can. He kneels, pleading with the king to save his people, but King Durin wants to have a private meeting with his son first. He states that he refuses to help the elves cheat death while endangering dwarven lives. Prince Durin begs him to reconsider, but the king only apologizes, saying the elves' time has come. Later, Disa is furious upon hearing what Durin's father has decided, but Durin also reminds her that he's their king, whom they need to respect. When Elrond arrives, he realizes from Durin's regretful face what the king has decided. He announces that Gil-galad must be informed immediately of the decision, and Durin becomes tearful upon thinking this will be the last time he'll see Elrond. Elrond hands back the piece of mithril to Durin before leaving, and in his frustration, Durin throws the stone across the table where it stops by a ruined leaf from the linden tree. Upon seeing the leaf has become healthy again, the dwarven couple becomes astonished before Durin calls back Elrond into the room. In the ruined Southlands, Theo seethes and wishes to seek revenge against the orcs, but Galadriel stops him. Meanwhile, Elendil supervises as survivors make their way out of the Southlands. Though he sees his son's horse, Isildur is nowhere to be found. When he finds Valandil and the queen, Valandil's stricken look has him assuming the worst. Meanwhile, Galadriel advises Theo to stop thinking that his mother and friends are dead, and instead, he should focus on getting to the Númenorian camp, which had been set up earlier. Later, Elendil realizes that Miriel has become blind from the fire embers while saving her people in the burning houses. She tells him to keep walking, as she doesn't want anybody to know. Back in the grove, 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐸𝐸 gives the stranger instructions on how to get to a big folk settlement, and hands him the page that Nori previously stole from him. As he's leaving, Nori hands him an apple, and later, she laments that she got herself involved back when she found the stranger in the crater. Meanwhile, when Theo asks Galadriel if she's lost anyone precious to the enemy, she answers that she has lost her brother, Finrod, as well as her husband, Celeborn. She shares that she and her husband met in a glade of flowers, where she had been dancing. Upon seeing Theo's surprise, she explained it happened long before the war, and when Celeborn joined the fight, she never saw him again. Theo confides that he believes what happened was his fault, and he was the one who gave the hilt to the enemy. Galadriel assures him it's not, as he didn't plan or want this to happen. Just then, orcs pass nearby, but fail to spot them. In the dwarven mines, Elrond accompanies Durin in his search for a new mithril vein. Much to their surprise, they find not only one, but plenty rich mithril veins. But then, the king finds them. He expels Elrond from Khazad-dûm, not knowing the elf has secretly taken a piece of mithril ore with him. Inside, Durin pleads with his father to reconsider his decision. He claims that he sees Elrond as a brother that his mother bore, which offends the king. The king removes his son's royal neck crest and tells him he doesn't need it anymore, as he's no longer the prince. The next day, Nori discovers that the stranger has fixed the grove, and the Harfoots rejoice upon having a bountiful harvest. While Poppy is fetching some water, she notices a shoe print, and later, she and Nori spy on the three peculiar women, mystics of Sauron, who Nori realizes are tracking the stranger. Nori attempts to misdirect them when suddenly they appear in front of her. Largo defends her with a torch, but a mystic merely extinguishes it before setting fire to the Harfoots' carts. Back in the Númenor camp, Elendil frees Isildur's horse, as no one can tame it, and he says he should have never brought Galadriel to Armenelos. Soon after, Galadriel and Theo find the camp, and while Theo finds both his mother and Arondir alive, Galadriel asks where the Queen Regent is. Just as Elendil tells Miriel that they're ready to depart back to Armenelos, Galadriel arrives, and she kneels in front of the blind queen, saying everything was her fault. Miriel tells Galadriel to save her pity for their enemies, as she vows that Númenor will return to aid the elves and men in Middle-earth, saddening Elendil, who wants to abandon the Southlands. Back in the grove, the Harfoots scavenge what they can from the wrecks of their carts, and as everyone is feeling down, Largo declares that it'll be all right, as they're Harfoots, who always stay true to each other. Invigorated, Nori declares that she'll leave to warn the stranger about the mystics that are after him. Poppy volunteers to go with her, as well as Marigold, while Malva convinces Sadak to come with them too. While the Númenorians sail back to their island city, Arondir asks Galadriel if the Queen Regent will keep her promise, to which she answers that she is certain of it. Bronwyn then reveals to them that they'll be heading to an old Númenorian colony called Pelargir, while Galadriel decides that she needs to meet with Gil-galad. Before leaving, she visits Halbrand and determines that he needs elvish medicine to recover from his wounds. The two then have a talk, where they both agree that everything isn't over yet. When Halbrand walks out of the tent to leave with Galadriel, he's greeted by the Southlanders as their king. Back in Khazad-dûm, Disa comforts her husband, telling him that one day the kingdom will be his. It will then be them that will rule the mountain, and together they will dig up the mithril. Nearby, King Durin throws the healed leaf inside the mines before sealing up the chasm, not knowing that with the landing of the leaf, he has awakened a Balrog from its slumber. Back in the Southlands, Waldrig and the orcs declare that Adar is now the Lord of the Southlands, but Adar believes it isn't a fitting name anymore for their land, changing its name from the Southlands into Mordor.